Welcome to DigiCam Deathmatch, where we take the best digicams over the past 25 years and pit them against each other to find the best digicamera for us, or potentially even for you. In season 1, we have 16 digicams competing in a Sweet 16 tournament style format.
Now, for the cameras to qualify, they had to meet a certain criteria. They had to be under $1,000 USD, either new or used. Batteries and memory cards needed to be readily available on platforms like Amazon. And they had to be able to fit into your pocket, or if you're like me and you don't have very big pockets or any at all, then to fit in a very small bag. We call this pocketable.
This season, we have digicams from almost every major camera manufacturer, including Canon, Sony, Lumix, Fuji, Nikon, HP, Samsung, and Pentax.
So the cameras are pitted head-to-head per round and ranked on the following categories: price, image quality, zoom, aperture, pocketability, color and vibe, ease of use, screen, fun factor, and with bonus points given for flash, macro, flip screen, and EVF.
All cameras were put into a random drawing to decide the matchups, with round 2 featuring the Fuji X Half manufactured in 2025 versus the Samsung PL50 manufactured in 2009.
So all the cameras were used extensively for over a month on various photo outings. However, today we're just gonna take these two out on a mano-a-mano style deathmatch to see which one makes it to the next round.
All photos you see on the Photowalk are shot JPEG straight out of camera. Now for each of these cameras, we try to do a little bit of special custom settings to get the most out of the JPEGs, so we'll leave those settings for you at the end of the video if you wanna match those styles.
So come and take a photo walk with us and judge for yourself. Okay, welcome back to studio after a day of shooting, and ignore the date stamp on the photos. Let's see which one lives to fight another day.
And keep in mind, guys, that we have owned these cameras for well over a month, so our rankings are based on that combined experience with the cameras.
Okay, so for each category 1, the camera is awarded 1 point. And in the event of a tie, both cameras will be awarded a point.
Also, for the price category, for every $200 cheaper one camera is against its competitor, it receives an additional point.
So speaking of price, let's start with that.
We purchased the Fuji X Half brand new for $850, and we purchased a Samsung PL50 used for $60. Now, off the bat, there's already a huge price difference. Now, I will say that yes, we did buy the Fuji X Half brand new, and we did buy the PL50 used, but if you know anything about Fujifilm cameras, you know that the retail price of a camera can sometimes be less expensive than the used price of a Fujifilm camera. So as of right now, we are holding that strong, as this is what we bought the cameras for. So in that case, the PL50 actually earns 3 points in the price category for each $200 less than it is from its competing camera. It almost got 4 points, but missed it by $10. So 3 points goes to the Samsung PL50 in the price category. Next up, we have image quality. The Samsung PL50 was manufactured in 2009, and I'm gonna be honest with you, the image quality kind of reflects that. Sometimes we do find those older retro DigiCams manufactured that early that do have stellar image quality. Sometimes they're teaming up with like a better lens manufacturer, our Lumix LX5 from last episode. That lens was manufactured by Leica, which is known for making incredible lenses. Canon and Sony's are already known for their incredible glass that they put in front of their cameras. So you do get that advantage sometimes based on the manufacturer. With Samsung on the PL50, definitely the optics are really hurt here. Even when a photograph is in focus, there's still times where it looks slightly soft. Now that's not necessarily always a bad thing. Sometimes it can give you that little bit of a vintage vibe to it, that little bit of a retro throwback, kind of like trigger some nostalgia. But other times you are gonna be a little bit disappointed with the image quality of the PL50. The X Half, on the other hand, is a mixed bag, honestly. We've owned this camera for over a month, and I don't understand how the X Half decides exposure, because as we go out, we were constantly fiddling with our exposure compensation dial, trying to stop the camera from overexposing, and even going down 1/3 of a stop or 2/3 of a stop, there were still times where the highlights were just utterly blown out. And with the X Half, because you don't get to pick your focus point, it kind of just chooses it for you automatically. You don't really have that option either to go into like a point focus or, or a spot or a center meter and find that, part of the frame that you're trying to expose. You're kind of just stuck with Fuji deciding what it thinks the exposure is gonna be. And for some reason in this camera, it's just all over the map and we can't figure out why. But with the Fujifilm X Half, when the exposure gets it right, the image is sharp, the colors are deep and saturated, and they're gorgeous. So when it hits, it really hits, which kind of puts us in this weird conundrum right now, because image quality wise, the Fuji X Half is better than the PL50, but that exposure kind of floating all over the map a little bit is a little bit frustrating. But still, at the end of the day, again, when it hits, it hits. So we do have to give the image quality win to the Fuji X Half.
All right, and next up we have pocketability. Now, if you take a look, both cameras actually fit really well into the pocket. However, the Fuji X Half, you will see, does have a little bit more weight, a little bit more width and girth to it than the PL50, which as you can see is a lot smaller, sleeker, and a little bit lighter. So for that, the PL50 wins in this category. And next up, we've got zoom. Okay, so the PL50 has a 35 to 105 full frame equivalent focal range, whereas the Fujifilm X Half has a fixed 32mm focal length. Now, that being said, out and about on the street, Working with them both, it was really, really nice having the zoom on the PL50. The X Half, while there were some great images I could grab, or that we could grab, it was just a lot more limiting, not being able to zoom in and capture objects in a more artistic or just fun way, or the way you saw it in your head. So the PL50 takes the point for this round.
Next up, we have aperture. The Samsung PL50 has a variable aperture range of 2.8 to 5.9, while the Fujifilm X Half has a 2.8 max aperture, which goes all the way to an f/16, but again, it is a fixed focal length 32mm lens on that. So going between the two, on the wider end, which we're gonna have to judge because the X Half does not have a zoom range, on the wider end, the Samsung PL50 does have a 2.8 at 35mm, where the Fuji X Half also has a 2.8 at 32mm. So that's dead in the pocket for each of them. But at the end of the day, the only thing we can do in that situation is either award a tie, or honestly, because looking at those optics, I will say that the PL50 at 2.8 is just super soft. It's not sharp. I don't know when you'd ever get away being able to shoot it at a 2.8 without losing some image quality, where at least with the X Half at that 2.8, you are getting super sharp images with the 2.8. So because of the softness of 2.8 with the PL50, we are gonna give the award to the X Half, even though both apertures are equal in that category.
And next up, we've got color and vibe.
Now with color and vibe, we are running into one look with the Samsung PL50. So we did dial in that look. Like I said, everything you saw earlier was JPEG straight out of the cameras. We tried to dial in the colors the best we could in the camera. There are limitations, of course, with older cameras on what you can do as far as setting white balance and saturation and contrast. But for the most part, we got a really good image out of this camera. The only difference between that and the X Half is the Fujifilm simulation. So if you know anything about Fujifilm cameras, then you are very familiar with their simulations. If you don't know anything about Fujifilm cameras, Fujifilm offers a plethora of film simulations or different color looks within their camera to kind of find your own style within it. Now, on a normal Fujifilm camera, you do have some extra abilities that you don't get with the X Half. You do have the ability to move around the white balance point a little bit more to the auburn, a little bit more to blue, a little bit more to magenta or green. So you do get a little bit more with a normal Fujifilm camera than you do in the X Half. The X Half does limit you to just setting your white balance or a custom Kelvin temperature. Then beyond that, you can just pick your favorite Fuji simulation. But at the end of the day, you are getting all those Fuji simulations. You are getting your Acros, you are getting your classic chrome, your classic neg, your nostalgic neg, even the new simulations like Reala Ace. So at the end of the day, you are getting extra options in that colors and vibe to kind of find the style that matches you. So we do have to give that win to the Fuji X Half for those simulations, even though we are gonna call those Fuji Simulations Light, almost like Fuji Simulations Half. See what I did there? Because those simulations don't have the ability to change the white balance.
Next up is ease of use. Okay, so for the Fuji X Half, there is a limited amount of buttons, which is actually really nice because my fingers have a lot of room to move while I'm grabbing the camera and handling it. That being said, for the PL50, if you take a look, there are a lot of buttons on the back, and my fingers were touching these all the time, which was really frustrating. I had to keep checking my settings because they kept messing up. Second, the Fuji X Half is simply a point and shoot. There's no zoom range, there's not a lot going on there, so you get to kind of turn your brain off, and it's very simplistic that way. That being said, also with the Fuji X Half, the focus is really, really easy. Again, while limiting creatively, as in you can't choose your focus, you can't track anything or pick an animal or an object, like I said, you get to turn your brain off, and it makes it really simplistic. Whereas the PL50, wow, you get to be more creative with all these options on the back. It does make you look a little bit more and have to think a little bit more about what you want. As well, the focus is a little bit unreliable. When you half press the shutter, it wasn't always picking the focus like you'd want it to. So, for this one, the round goes to the Fujifilm X Half.
Next up, we have screen. The Samsung PL50 was manufactured in 2009, where the Fuji X Half, again, was manufactured in 2025. And in screen technology, that is very apparent. It is extremely difficult to see the screen on the Samsung PL50, whether you're in bright sunlight or in shade. There are tons of times where you are really fighting to even see if a photo is in focus or composed properly, where with the X Half, the screen is brighter. Now, I will be honest, the X Half screen is not amazing by 2025 standards. I will say that the Fujifilm X Half screen does beat a DigiCam from 2009 in screen technology, but it is nowhere near what most manufacturers, including Fuji, are kicking out in 2025. But at the end of the day, we do have to rate one camera against another, and the Fujifilm X Half does win as having a better screen than the PL50. Though I do believe if it does move on in the competition, it is going to struggle against the competitors.
And next we've got fun factor. The fun factor for the Fuji X Half, one of the things we've really liked about it is how tactile it is. So you've got your aperture right here, your exposure compensation here, and a really fun feature about this camera is the film advance lever right here. Now, we use that for the diptychs as you saw in the photos, which are the side-by-side comparisons that you can get with that. But also that film advance lever works for an old school film simulation mode that you can do on the camera, where you pull the lever to get to the next photo. We also really loved the display for the film simulation mode that you're in. It was really reminiscent of old school film cameras, which was really enjoyable. That being said, for the PL50, while it's super fun, lightweight, easy to move around, throw in your pockets, it's a lot like every other DigiCam out there, so it didn't really go over the top for us. So for this one, the Fujifilm X Half takes the point.
Next up, we have our bonus categories, and the first one up is flash. Both cameras in our deathmatch do have a flash, but there is one defining characteristic between the two when it comes to the flash. With the Samsung PL50, it does have that traditional bulb xenon flash, where with the Fujifilm X Half, for some reason, even in the year 2025, Fujifilm decided to put an LED flash on the X Half. Now, both of those flashes will get the job done if your subject is stationary. But if your subject is in motion, that PL50 with that normal flash is going to freeze that action, while the LED light in the X Half will not, and you will get motion blur, which kind of begs the question of why Fujifilm, making such a retro camera, would put an LED flash on this instead of a regular old school flash, especially considering the price tag of $850. With the minimal amount of features on this camera, it's kind of weird that they didn't splurge for a normal flash on there. But at the end of the day, they both do have flash, and if the subject is stationary, both of them work just fine, so they both get a point for having a flash. Next on the bonus points, we have macro. Both cameras again do have a macro mode. You can get super close focus with them and shoot those pretty flowers. So again, both cameras are going to get a point for having that. Next up, we have flip screen, and neither of these cameras have a flip screen, which means neither of them earn bonus points for having a flip screen. And our final bonus point category, EVF. Now, neither of these cameras have an electronic viewfinder. Fujifilm, however, did put an OVF, or an optical viewfinder, on the X Half. Now, I will say with that optical viewfinder, there is no information in that, which again, for Fujifilm in 2025 is weird, considering that a bunch of their other cameras, the X100V, the X Pro series, or even going all the way back to another Fujifilm camera we have in this competition, the X20, all have at least some sort of information in that OVF, where they do show you what's in focus, they do show you some of the camera settings, they even show you if the battery is low. Fujifilm on the X Half just gave you a window. It's just a window. You can look through it and it will kind of show you what you're taking a picture of, though I will say that that OVF is wildly inaccurate, especially when you get close up on things, and there are no frame line guides, so you're kind of just guessing. But I do have to say that they did give you something. So I guess something is better than nothing. But we cannot in good conscience give it a full point for an EVF because it's literally a window. But I can't not give it a point for having nothing because it does have something. So we're gonna give it half of a point, which is something we never do, but I don't know what else to do here. So it will be a half a point for that Fujifilm X Half for having a window that you can look through and kind of frame photos.
Yes. And so that puts us at the winner, doesn't it? So that is our rankings and we are sticking to them. If you disagree, deathmatch it out in the comments below. And our winner for round 2 by half a point is the Fujifilm X Half.
So thank you guys so much for hanging out again on DigiCam Deathmatch. Tune in next episode when we take on the Nikon A1000 against the Canon G5X Mark II. So the A1000 versus the G5X Mark II in next episode.
And always remember, the best camera is the one you have on you. Later.